In this second video, I'm going to show you how I tackled a one-off problem of replacing some veneer on a piece of furniture I designed and made 38 years ago. It's a combined desk and cabinet. In part 1, I showed how I used an impact glue for the top veneer, as I could not find deep reach clamps to use a conventional PVA glue. Incidentally, I purchased this lovely Japanese chisel especially for the repair job. I didn't have a wide chisel to hand and, well, it's a feel-good factor and it looks good on film, I hope you'll agree. Now, an impact glue shouldn't really be used for wood veneer, but I did and it lasted 30 plus years. Now I'm faced with the same dilemma and had little choice but to use an industrial strength glue, which I assumed, with the benefits of advances in technology over the years, will be stronger than the original one. But at least this repair should see me out. So I hope you pick up something useful from my unconventional approach. So let's talk it through. Well, I did try using PVA glue with some heavy weights, but as I suspected, it really just didn't work. The wood rippled up. So here I am masking off the top surface to put the ash veneer on and using paper, local newspaper, to mask off. Preparation is important. I don't want the spray to get over the rest of the cabinet. And here is the industrial strength spray adhesive. I've never used this before. With the old Everstick Impact, I used to spread it on with a spatula. So I've left it for about half a minute on each surface, making sure it's quite thoroughly covered. And I'd already marked a position for the first veneer. Really, the two veneers should be taped together, but I decided to do them separately. So this is a little bit fiddly, trying to line it up because you can't move it around. So I'm using the very edge of the veneer along the pencil line, and then use a hammer and block, scrapwood block, to impact it down, and then using a piece of newspaper as a barrier, spray the adhesive onto the other veneer, and then very carefully marry up the edge. I don't seem to have quite as steady a hand as I used to when I was a young man. You've got to be spot on first time. As I say, make sure there's plenty of glue on both surfaces, and then impact it down with a hammer and block of wood. There's one comment I've got about the reviews on this spray adhesive. Nobody seems to comment on how it performs after a period of years. I think this just reflects how we live very much in the now today. Very much in the moment, but you know, the burning question with an impact adhesive like this is, how long will it last? And I'm basing this on over half a century of my woodworking experience, and I'm guessing, I reckon it'll last 20 years or so. First thing I'm doing is marking a line. So here I'm trimming the edges. And then using a sanding block very carefully against the masking tape. I don't want to go through the masking tape because then that will go through the existing black lacquer. Black ash in the 1970s and 80s was actually quite fashionable in modern furniture. So here we are, it's looking quite neat. The ash is a nice flat stable timber to use. Now here I've got to do the tricky cutaway for the door, so I'm using a spacer strip of veneer to mark the line and make sure that when I cut the line, I cut on the outside of the line. So you should always remember to shade waste. It's a good habit to get into. And now with a straight edge, you could use a straight steel rule. I'm using a piece of wood here. Very carefully with a marking knife, do a series of shallow cuts to cut through the veneer. Just be very, very careful. And if you calculated it correctly, you should be just on the outside of the line, just enough, maybe 0.5 millimeter to spare in order to sand it back down. So this is a little bit fiddly, especially this corner bit. You can see it's breaking away, so I've got to re-glue that. A little bit fiddly. So I'm using the abrasive block to actually cut through the veneer. It's a rather unconventional method, but it works. And now just sand the whole surface and go around the edges. It's quite a straightforward job, really. As I say, this should last at least a couple of decades. Certainly see me out. What next? Well, now I'm going to use a spray aerosol. When I made the original cabinet, I had a proper spray gun system. I think it was called an Apollo system, and I did it outdoors. So I shouldn't really be doing this, especially in my living room. I'm doing some work on my workshop at the moment, so I can't use my workshop. And I'm using a very fine 400 wet and dry just to smooth down in between coats. So put several coats of matte black lacquer on. Should wear a mask. And then on top of the black lacquer, I'm putting a clear lacquer, rubbing down in between coats with a very fine wet and dry paper. And there we are. And in fact, there's just one small job to still do. I noticed that on the join of the veneers, it had very slightly shrunk out, and I'm not happy with that. So I'm going to use a tiny bit of wood filler, sand it back down, spray some black lacquer on, and then finish off with clear lacquer. Job done. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you found this useful, even if a little unconventional. And please, if you like my channel, do the usual things: subscribe, ring the bell, whatever. I can't keep up with all this technology, but thank you for watching.